This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895. The meeting will now begin.
Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 3rd, And this is the meeting of the Community Economic and Human Development Committee and is now called to order. As a reminder, if any member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but they may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. We're going to run the pledge, and Ms. Bucknam, could I ask you again you did so well.
If you would all rise and join me in pledging allegiance to our wonderful flag. Ready, begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'm the flag.
Thank you. By the end of the day, you'll probably be really, really good at leading the pledge. All right. Clerk, do we have a quorum? Thank you. I'll now open the, are we going straight on? Open the general public comment period of this meeting. This is the time for members of the public to offer comment for matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction but not listed on the agenda. Staff, have we received any written public comments after the deadline at 5 p.m. on Wednesday?
Mr. Vice Chair, I can confirm that we did not receive any written public comments after the deadline on Wednesday, April 2nd.
Okay. Just a point of order. Our chair is with us on Zoom. I'm starting the meeting, and we're going to get through agenda item 1, and then we'll move from there. In the room, do we have any members of the public who wish to speak? Seeing none. Now we'll close the public comment period for matters not listed on the agenda. This is the time to review and prioritize agenda items. Would anyone like to reprioritize? Seeing none. Okay, we're to action item number 1. Would you like to take it from here?
Sure. Well, first ask for public comment. Any members of the public who would like to speak on this item?
I do not see any members of the public wishing to participate in person or remotely online.
Okay. Good morning, honorable members of the CEHD. My name is Richard Lamb. I'm the Senior Deputy Legal Counsel for SCAG. We will begin conducting an election for the chair of the CEHD. One nomination for CEHD has been received. That's the Honorable David Shapiro from the city of Calabasas. In addition to nominees received before the meeting, SCAG's bylaws allows for nominations from the floor. The process for nominations from the floor in the election is as follows. A nomination does not need a second. A member can nominate themselves. To make a nomination, please raise your hand to be called upon. And when called upon, please announce your nomination. And if additional nominations are received, council will repeat the names of all nominees. Once there are no more nominations from the floor, we will offer each candidate an opportunity to address the committee, and please limit your speeches to 3 minutes. Then we will turn it over to the clerk for a roll call vote. You will vote by naming the nominee for whom you'd like to cast your vote. I will now open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for chair of CEHD? Seeing none, we will close the nominations. And at this point, I believe David Shapiro, Chair Shapiro, you have the opportunity to address the committee if you'd like.
Thank you very much, Richard. I will be very brief. I'm out of the meeting today because I got hit with a lovely case of food poisoning. So I have my apologies for not being there, but I just want to thank everybody for their service, their time. I am very biased, but I believe we have the best committee at SCAG, and we have the most energetic, intelligent, and exciting ideas on a regular basis. So I will thank you for your support and thank you for the opportunity to serve one more year.
Okay. We have a hand raised by Honorable Margaret Finley.
Hi, David. You don't look sick. So kudos to you for getting up and dressing and looking as good as you do.
You're very kind. Very kind. Look good, then feel good, right?
Okay, thank you for those comments. We will now vote on the candidate for chair of the CEHD committee. When called upon, please state your candidate's name.
Thank you. Cindy Allen. Valeria Mesqua. Debbie Baker. Joe Baca. Drew Boyles.
Shapiro.
Wendy Bucknam.
Shapiro.
Tanya Doby.
Shapiro.
Deborah Dosparada. Keith Ike.
Shapiro.
Shauna Elias. Bob Engler.
Shapiro.
Rose Espinosa.
Shapiro.
Wayman Furman.
Shapiro.
Margaret Finley.
David Shapiro.
Martin Fuentes.
Shapiro.
Victoria Garcia.
Shapiro.
Gary Gardner.
Shapiro.
Mike Goodsill.
David Shapiro.
John Grass. Mark Henderson. Peggy Wong. Cecilia Hupp.
Shapiro.
William Hutsey.
Mr. Shapiro.
Linda Johnson.
Shapiro.
Matt Levere, I'm sorry.
Shapiro.
Jet Liano. Annie Marshall.
David Shapiro.
Thank you. John Marish. Geneva Mahata.
Shapiro.
One moment. Joseph Marbito.
David Shapiro.
Lizette Mullins.
Shapiro.
Joseph Murphy. Maricela Nava.
Shapiro.
Freddie Puzza.
Shapiro.
Rocky Rhodes.
Shapiro.
David Shapiro.
Thanks for that, Rocky. Shapiro.
Thanks. Becky Shevlin.
Shapiro.
Helen Tran. Mark Warrenett.
Shapiro.
Equinata Warren.
Shapiro.
Jeff Wood.
Shapiro.
Judy Woolsey. Tony Wu.
Shapiro.
Frank Yokoyama.
Chair Shapiro.
And Frank Saranian.
Here.
Thank you. That would be 33 yes votes for Chair Shapiro.
Okay, pleased to announce that David Shapiro is voted in as the chair of the CEHD committee. Congratulations, Chair Shapiro. Okay, moving on, we will now conduct an election for the vice chair of the CEHD committee. 2 nominations have been received for this position. The Honorable Rocky Rhodes from the city of Simi Valley and the Honorable Keith Ike from the city of La Cañada, Flint Ridge. We will follow the same process for nominations from the floor, 3-minute speeches and a roll call vote. I will now open the floor for nominations. Are there any nominations for the vice chair of CEHD? Okay, seeing none, I will close the nominations. And once again, we will have a roll call vote. Please state the name. Sorry. Let's allow for the candidates to address the committee. In alphabetical order, we'll go with Keith Ike.
Mr. Rhodes has done an amazing job, and I will be voting for Mr. Rhodes. I hope that convinces everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. Vice Chair Rhodes, would you like to address the committee?
Given that situation, I might save 3 minutes on our committee since we started late. I'm proud of the work that we've done on the committee, and I'm looking forward to this coming year. I'm also very specifically, for those who have concerns about RHNA in the room, that's a particular passion of mine, and we're going to work on reform over the next 2 years. And if things being the way they normally go, I should be sitting in this chair at the next round of RHNA, and we will fight for all our communities. And the last thing is we're going to focus this committee on the 2028 games coming up, and we're going to be responsible for looking out for economic development issues, and we're already heading that way. So I would appreciate your support. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for those comments. We will now vote on the candidate for vice chair of CEHD committee. When called upon, please state the name of your candidate.
Thank you. Cindy Allen,
Rocky Roads.
Valerie Mesqua, Joe Baca,
Rocky Road.
Debbie Baker,
Rocky Roads.
Drew Boyles,
Roads.
Wendy Bucknam,
Rocky Road.
Tanya Doby,
It's been a little rocky, but looks like the road leads through him.
Keith Knight,
Roads.
Shauna Elias, Bob Engler,
Roads.
Rosa Espinosa,
Roads.
Raymond Furman,
Roads.
Margaret Finley,
Sounds like a great name for an ice cream. I say Rocky Roads.
Martin Fuentes,
Roads.
Victoria Garcia,
Roads.
Gary Gardner,
Roads.
Mike Gassell.
Rocky Roads.
Thank you. He Wong, Celia Huff,
Roads.
William Hussey,
Mr. Rose.
Linda Johnson,
Roads.
Matt Levere,
Roads.
Jay Liano, Annie Marshall,
Rocky Roads.
John Mirage, Geneva Mojado,
Rocky Roads.
Joseph Morabito,
Rocky Roads.
Seth Mullen,
Roads.
Joseph Murphy, Maricela Nava,
Roads.
Freddie Puzza,
Rose.
Rocky Roads,
Roads.
David Shapiro,
Vice Chair Rhodes.
Becky Shevlin,
Roads.
Mark Warrenet,
Roads.
Equinetta Warren,
Roads.
Jeff Wood,
Roads.
Judy Woolsey,
Roads.
thank you. Tony Wu,
Rose.
Frank Yokoyama,
Vice Chair Roads.
and Frank Zarania.
Roads.
Thank you. And that will be 35 votes for Vice Chair Rhodes.
Okay.
More than chair, huh?
Pleased to announce that Vice Chair Rhodes has been elected again as the Vice Chair of the CEHD committee. Congratulations.
Congratulations, Madam Clerk. This is Vice Mayor Mary Solorio from San Fernando. I don't know if some of us are not being counted on the roll call.
Mayor Solorio, what is your teleconference location?
It's posted on it should be posted on the agenda, 1425 Hollister.
Okay. Unfortunately, we didn't receive your teleconference location in time to be posted on the agenda for today's meeting. You're completely welcome to participate as a member of the public. However, at this point, it's subject to the Brown Act. We can't allow you to participate as a member of this body.
Okay, thank you so much for the information.
Thank you. And if the vice chair will indulge me, I have one more point of order. We have our honorable David Shapiro, who has to appear at this meeting due to unforeseen circumstances and emergency situations. So we need to ask Chair Shapiro for that reason in order for the Brown Act to allow him to appear and participate. Chair Shapiro, what is the reason for your teleconferencing today?
I could joke and say Rocky almost didn't vote for me, but I'll say it's solely because of the fact that I had food poisoning and could not make it today.
Okay, thank you for that. So subject to Government Code 54943 subdivision F, we will now need to take a vote. Need a majority of the body to approve Chair Shapiro's request to appear remotely. Madam Clerk, can you please take a roll call vote?
Yes. Cindy Allen,
Aye.
Valerie Mescla, Debbie Baker,
Aye.
Joe Baca,
Aye.
Drew Boyles,
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam,
Aye.
Tanya Doby,
Aye.
Keith Ike,
Yes.
Sean Elias, Bob Engler,
Aye.
Yes.
thank you. Rose Espinosa,
Aye.
Raymond Furman,
Aye.
Margaret Finley,
Yes.
Martin Fuentes,
Aye.
Victoria Garcia,
Aye.
Gary Gardner,
Aye.
Mike Gusso,
Aye.
Peggy Wan, Cecilia Hupp,
Yes.
William Hussey,
Yes.
Linda Johnson,
Aye.
Matt Levere,
Yes.
Jet Liano, Annie Marshall,
Yes.
John Mirish, Geneva Mojado,
Yes.
Joseph
Yes.
Moore,
Yes.
thank you. Suzette Mullins,
Yes.
Joseph Murphy, Maricela Nava,
Aye.
Freddie Puzza,
Yes.
Rocky Rhodes,
Yes.
David Shapiro,
Yes.
Becky Shevlin,
Yes.
Mark Warrenick,
Aye.
Aquanetta Warren,
Aye.
Jeff Wood,
Aye.
Judy Woolsey,
Aye.
Tony Wu,
Yes.
thank you. Frank Yokoyama,
Yes.
and Frank Siranian.
Yes.
Thank you. Chair, the motion for Chair Shapiro to participate remote passes with 37 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. The vote has passed. We will resume the meeting as order. Turn it back to the Vice Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Chair Shapiro, for showing, even though ill. It's appreciated the effort put in for the group. The chair has asked that I go ahead and continue running the meeting from here, so I will do that. Next up on the agenda is consent calendar. In order to save time, if anybody wants to pull anything from the consent calendar, I ask that we have staff present before moving to the roll call vote for the consent calendar. Anybody need to pull anything?
Move consent.
Second.
Okay. Call for the vote.
Thank you. Cindy Allen,
Aye.
Valerie Mescla, Joe Baca,
Aye.
Debbie Baker,
Abstain.
Drew Boyles,
Yes.
Wendy Bucknam,
Aye.
Tanya Doby,
Aye.
Keith Ike,
Yes.
Sean Elias,
Aye.
Bob Engler,
Yes.
Rose Espinosa,
Aye.
Raymond Furman,
Aye.
Margaret Finley,
Yes.
Martin Fuentes,
Yes.
Victoria Garcia,
Aye.
Gary Gardner,
Aye.
Mike Goodso,
Aye.
Peggy Wong, Cecilia Hupp,
Yes.
William Hussey,
Yes.
Linda Johnson,
Yes.
Matt Levere,
Yes.
Jet Liano, Annie Marshall,
Yes.
John Mirish, Geneva Mojado,
Yes.
Joseph Morabito,
Yes.
Suzette Mullen,
Yes.
Joseph Murphy, Maricela Nava,
Aye.
Freddie Puzza,
Yes.
Rocky Rhodes,
Yes.
David Shapiro,
Yes. Yes.
thank you, Becky Shevlin,
Yes.
Mark Warrenet,
Aye.
Equinetta Warren,
Aye.
Jeff Wood,
Aye.
Judy Woolsey,
Yes.
Tony Wu,
Yes.
Frank Yokoyama,
Yes.
and Frank Zeranian.
Yes.
Thank you. The consent calendar passes with 35 yes votes, zero no votes, and 1 abstention.
Thank you. It's now time to move on to our information items. And for today's information item, we'll be continue exploring regional recovery and resiliency policies that can better protect our communities from natural disasters, such as the massive fires seen in Southern California earlier this year. Today, we'll hear presentations from 2 speakers that will share best practices and resources on home hardening and other important resilience strategies. According to CAL FIRE, home hardening is the term used to describe vegetation management compliance and building materials used to resist the intrusion of flames or embers projected by a wildfire or wildland fire. It can be applied to new construction for retrofitting an older home. Home hardening considers the relationship between your home and its exposure to nearby combustible features such as vegetation, vehicles, accessory buildings, or even miscellaneous structures like a fence. First, we'll have Elizabeth Christie, the Education Program Manager at the U.S. Green Building Council, present. And then next, we'll have Brian Cameron, the President of EPIC Calabasas, who will speak to local level strategies such as home hardening and how they support communities with preparation, prevention, and what should be done if a disaster occurs. We're going to entertain questions from the committee members and open the public comment period after both presentations have concluded. I'd like to now call on Elizabeth Christie to begin her presentation.
Good morning. Hey, it worked. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you all for taking the time to hear us today. I just want to quickly introduce myself and my colleague here. I'm Elizabeth Christie, the Education Program Manager, and this is one of my Green Building Corps interns, Cass, who wanted to join us today. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Cassandra Wood, and I'm here assisting. Thank you so much for having us.
All right, I'm going to dive into our presentation. I do have about 40 slides. I'm going to try and get through them fairly quickly, but I'm happy to share the slides after the meeting if you do have questions or you want access to any of the links or resources that are in there. And then we'll do questions at the end. So just some quick frame of reference for how this course became developed. This was in response to the Camp Fires in Paradise several years ago. We first started with a wildfire advisory group of wildfire professionals throughout the state, and they helped us develop the content for a training certification. So now we offer 2 types of training certifications, one for construction professionals and one for landscape professionals. There is an exam associated with the course and a certification, and then once you've passed the exam and received your certificate, we will add you to our professional directory. That way, folks can actually find you. So now on our website is a directory. I think we have about 40 certified wildfire professionals in there right now, since we've been running the course for several years. And on our website, we're also capturing forms from the community. So we've asked for folks to submit forms if they need resources and folks to submit forms if they have resources, and then we're matchmaking them. There's also a sustainable rebuilding guide that we've been putting together over the last quarter, and it just got launched officially at the beginning of this week. It's very exciting, and then we'll be hosting a webinar and a community workshop over the next couple weeks to help explain the rebuilding guide to the community and how to best use it. So part of being here today, we wanted to offer you all the opportunity to participate in this conversation. So if you're interested in becoming a USGBC member, we offer this 1-year free membership to you all today so that you have access to everything on our community hub and all the guides and toolkits and everything. So feel free to use this code, Recovery 2025, or if you're already a member, amazing. And then if you're not familiar, we have our California Green Building Conference. We recently went statewide. We were an LA-based organization. So our conference had been in LA for the last 10 years. And now for the first time, it's going to be in the Bay Area. So now we're going to dive into the nitty-gritty details. Are we ready? Some of it's a bit technical. I'm going to skip over the sections that are talking about codes. But that content is in the original deck. So these slides I'm sharing with you today are a very shortened version of the full 3-hour training that we offer. So one of the things that we're adding to the training this year, we recently updated the content, is about preparedness. So a lot of this is not only so much about protecting your home and community, but also protecting the first responders who are coming to your house. So a lot of the techniques that we're sharing with people, we say, you know, we can't guarantee that we're going to be able to save your property, but all of these steps and things you can do not only will help the first responders access your property and also make sure that everyone is safe. So we're going to talk quickly about the types of fires and how they affect us, because this is changing a lot. We know that this is changing due to climate change. So if you haven't heard these terms before, you probably have since the last quarter. This is all we've been hearing on the news. The wildland urban interface, or the WUI, and the fire hazard severity zones. We know that CAL FIRE and NFPA just came out with updated zones. So they increased the areas that are considered fire hazard severity zones. There are a couple different types of fires, and understanding the history of ecology in California, we were supposed to have seasonal burns. This is part of our natural fire ecology. It has been happening this way in California for thousands of years. It's only in the last couple hundred years, due to expansion of communities into natural spaces and a history of fire suppression, that is causing these huge infernos. So this is not how it should be naturally in our system. So as I mentioned before, there's different types of fires. Ideally, the ground fires and the surface fires are easy to manage, particularly for our first responders. But once it hits a crown fire, that's when it's reaching the tops of the trees. That's when you start getting those like 1,000-foot walls of flame, and you actually do kill most of your tree species unless they're really tough, like a live oak. So understanding your fire regimes is important for understanding where your home is, because this is going to look very different depending on what part of California you live in. If you're in a desert community, or you're in a mountain community, or maybe you are closer to the coast, there's going to be different types of strategies to protect your home and community. And of course, we know that this is all increasing due to climate change. We're seeing fires during times of the year that we typically didn't see them. They're also lasting longer, and they're becoming less and less predictable. So building climate resilient communities is really going to support us here. We're trying to think proactively and not reactively. There's also a distinction between fire that's happening in the wilderness and fire that's happening in our urban areas. You know, the Woolsey fire burned over 100,000 acres, but didn't get as much coverage because there were no deaths. So understanding your how close you are to parks and natural spaces is really going to impact how your community responds to fire. So now we're going to dig into the home hardening elements. So this is the actual, like, what can you do to your house to protect yourself from windblown embers? I'm sure you've all heard on the news lately that windblown embers are the #1 source of ignition for homes. And oftentimes that happens in just the tiniest spaces, a little vent in your roof, a little crack in the sealant around your garage door. That's usually how the first embers get in. And then once they're in, it's almost impossible to stop it. Also, the first responders can't always tell if, what's happening from the outside of your space until it's too late. So In terms of the retrofits that you can do to your current structure, this is a breakdown of cost versus safety. So a lot of times when you're working with a consultant that's helping you understand what types of building retrofits you need, you're going to start with the stuff that's low cost and high priority. So you can see vents and maintenance are the two most important things you can do. We often are seeing that contractors don't know this information, and so they're having their clients spend thousands and thousands of dollars doing these huge projects, putting in a new roof, replacing all their windows, replacing their siding, and that's not necessarily what you need to do. So it's really important that we're educating the contractors and the construction professionals so they're not gouging clients and you might spend $50,000 replacing your roof and you didn't replace your vents and a little ember is still going to get in there. So it's very important that all the professionals understand these recommendations. So here's just an example of some different type of roofing materials. That's part of this training as we go through all the different types of materials. We provide also resource guides of where you can purchase sustainable materials. And of course, because we're an environmentally focused organization, we talk about the carbon footprint of your materials as well. So all of these resources are included in this deck and provided to all the participants who come through. So defensible space is now your landscape. So your home hardening refers to your physical structure, and then your defensible space is zones 0 through 5. So that's like 0 to 5 feet from your property, all the way to 100 feet out from your physical structure. So zone 0 is probably the most important. That's the one that everyone talks about. That's within 5 feet of your house. There's a lot of rules about what can be touching your house, what can be next to your house, what type of material it is. What they're trying to prevent is something called a ladder effect. So if you have something like a small shrub with a slightly larger shrub next to it, and then there's a ladder or a planter box leaning on the side of your house, now you've created a ladder that flame can go up the side of your building and get to your roof. So that's where we're saying that your plant choice and what you put in the perimeter proximity around your home is extremely important. And making sure there's nothing flammable. That's also a big one too. So upkeep and maintenance is, again, one of the lowest cost, most important things that you can do. Also, depending on what area you're living. So let's say you're in a more mountain area, like in the Palisades, you probably need to be more aware of pine needles getting built up on your property and things like that. But maybe if you're living in a more coastal region or even in Altadena, you might be dealing with more oak debris and things like that. So understanding your ecology and making sure that your landscape professionals understand that as well. So this is your ember resistant zone, the most important zone. Zone 1 is 5 to 30 feet from your perimeter of your home. So this is more now talking about trees and larger shrubs. Then zone 2 is 30 to 100 feet. Now we're getting into our tree canopy and our strategic tree canopy. So when we're talking about how to space trees, again, we're mentioning this ladder effect. So making sure that trees are not too tightly close together and that you're not planting a bunch of shrubs right at the base of your tree that's going to allow flames to climb up from that ground fire level that is a very low temperature to the crown fire, which is that really hot inferno. So trees really can protect you. And I think we have seen this a little bit over the news as well. There's been a lot of back and forth about the trees. It's been very interesting to watch. So we know that palm trees are non-native. They are in the grass family and they are highly combustible. So we recommend that if you are thinking about the trees on your property, investing in native trees can really protect you. So a lot of the native species, because fire ecology is part of California's history, they have evolved over thousands of years to withstand that. So California native trees have much thicker bark. They also have more water in their bark. They have deeper tap roots so they can survive longer periods without water, and they can bounce back more quickly after a fire. And some of our native tree species actually can only reproduce in a fire. They're called serotinous tree species, and their seeds won't even open until it reaches a certain temperature. So unfortunately, a lot of the trees that we see in our communities now are echinacea, and oh, I'm sorry, that's a flower. What's the one I'm thinking of that starts with an eucalyptus? Thank you. High oil content, very flammable, non-native species. They're beautiful. I like them a lot. They smell great, but they are not good for protecting the community and building climate resilience. So defensible space assessment is something you definitely need to do on your property, especially if you're living in the WUI. This isn't so much relevant for folks who are living in densely populated urban communities. We have a whole separate training about that, of extreme heat and how to plant and plan your property around extreme heat instead of wildfire. So some of the qualities you want to maintain, native plants, that they're well spaced, well irrigated, and that you have seasonal regular maintenance. Some native species you want to look out for. These are just some of my favorites. The California lilac and the live oaks are probably my two most favorites. And now we're going to just briefly touch on your perimeter of your property in terms of the hardscaping. So now this is like your porches, your backyards, your pools area. That space also needs to be clear and follow the same rules as the defensible space zones for your home. And also understanding the wind in your community is so important. I recently had the opportunity to walk through the Altadena area with some representatives from CAL FIRE, and they explained to me why some blocks were completely decimated and some blocks were untouched. And it was really just the wind and what direction the wind was going, and how, especially if you're in a canyon, that affects the direction of the wind. So in a lot of ways, that's really our only predictor of how strong or how intense we think a fire is going to be. And I'm sure you all know that prior to that, the fires in January, there were representatives from fire communities coming down to Los Angeles because they knew the wind conditions were perfect for this. And they had predicted this was going to happen. So they know a lot more than I feel like most of us are paying attention to. So now we're going to talk about how to recover your property, your post-fire checklist. What are you doing to make sure that once you leave your property, and you have to return, and now it's a burn site, what are you doing to prevent soil erosion? What are you doing to test your soil and things like that? Your primary succession plants, those are the very first plants that are going to pop up after a burn. So I recommend native wildflowers or native grasses. They seed and sprout the most quickly. And we also are really pushing the community resilience and communication part. So, electing a block captain in your neighborhood and making sure everyone in your community is part of your local fire safe council and knows what the local regulations are. So these are some of the organizations that we recommend to participants in the training. So I'd say this training is relevant for both homeowners and professionals. I think it's important for the homeowners and property owners to know this information so they can clearly communicate it to their working professionals. And hopefully, we're looking at doing some trainings with cities and things like that moving forward as well. That is the end of my slides. Thank you all so much.
Well, thank you very much, both Elizabeth and Cass, for that presentation. We are going to have questions, but after our next speaker. I'd like to now call on Brian Cameron to begin your presentation.
Hi, Brian. This is Elizabeth. Are you able to hear it?
Okay. All right. I'm unmuted now. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. On behalf of EPIC FSC, thank you for inviting me this morning. Next slide, please. In 2021, our city council took the chance that supporting a group of citizens could make the city safer. So they challenged a few of us to try. With an initial grant to cover legal and accounting expenses, we became a 501c3 organization powered by unpaid volunteers. Volunteers are like a herd of cats. They want to do everything and go everywhere. So we had to communicate our purpose to the city and our neighbors. Next slide, please. In 2021, we were still stinging from the 2018 Woolsey fire and the perception that neither the city nor the residents were adequately prepared for disasters. So our mission practically created itself. Mitigation leads to improved, but not assured preparedness. Preparedness for wildfires, but we also need to be prepared for earthquakes, mudslides, and evacuations. This is where a public-private partnership pays off in the response area. On the EPIC side, we enjoy success because of the volunteers we have recruited. But none of this could have happened without high-level support from our city, and particularly Mike Dyer, the Director of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness for the city. Next slide, please. We quickly realized there was a plethora of professionally researched and written disaster prep materials that too often were falling on deaf ears or not reaching its audience at all. So we concluded that we had to first inform and educate the public on fire-safe communities, earthquake risk, and mitigation. So priority of ours became community outreach. Second, to aid, assist, and participate in fire mitigation planning efforts. And third, to prioritize and secure funding for coordinated fire-safe projects and activities, all of which requires motivated volunteers. Next slide, please. We knew we needed to recruit volunteers. Volunteers can be a city's force multiplier, absent hurdles like, work, raising a family, socializing, kids' sports, vacations, doctors' dentals, and regular flossing. Fundamentally, one size fits none. So where did we start? Next slide. Every business needs a strategy. Who better to spread the word about preparedness? So we decided to focus on who our principal target audiences were. First one, Calabasas has a population. Calabasas population over 65 is 18%. This is a great population. We have fewer time constraints. I say we because I'm part of that. Often looking for places to belong. May feel that our life experiences aren't being appreciated. We're not looking for a full-time commitment, but we want to feel part of something that's benefiting others. So that was our first target audience, and it's working quite well. We've recently moved into our second target audience. I'm not going to say secondary because they're equally as important. 21% of the Calabasas population is under age 18. They're energetic, but in need of focus. They're in need of public service credits for graduation, and they respond to socialization efforts. So the way we are approaching this second audience is different from the way we are approaching our first audience, but we're trying to provide them with equal enthusiasm because we need them both. Not the least reason of which there's not a theory, there is an observation out there that the way to get to that middle group, the 18 to 65, is through the under 18 group, that they bring home what they're learning and share it with the rest of the family. Next slide, please. Our core group of volunteers needed tools. So we underwent home hardening training and have been conducting comprehensive home assessments. We have been doing community preparedness and outreach, which are mutually inclusive. We are doing fairs, press releases, newsletters, and a phone app that I'm going to get into in a moment. We've been doing classes and training, and most recently, we have set about creating fire-wise communities within neighborhoods in the city. When we started this off last year, there was one fire-wise community in Calabasas. We're now up to, I believe, 14 and going strong and developing more. Next slide, please. As we were organizing, our volunteers suggested several different initiatives. One of our best green lights was a smartphone application. Preparedness at your fingertips. This smartphone app is available free on the Apple Store and Google Play at Epic-FSC Calabasas. This app is powerful in a number of ways. Because of its expert content, which provides guidance as to what to do before, during, and after earthquake, wildfire, mudslides. It also, once you download it, it's stored in your phone's memory, so that in the event of an earthquake, for example, if there is a loss of internet, electricity, telephone, we are at that point in time kind of at a loss, except for what you have already stored on your smartphone app. So it's powerful in that regard. And we are making, just so you know, we are making this app available for customization for other cities. Just let us know. Next slide, please. One of the frequent complaints we heard after Woolsey was, why wasn't I told? In response, we created disaster communications. We have Epic-FSC provided a solution in the creation of ECHO, Emergency Communication to Home Occupants. This emergency communication program helps residents successfully maintain communications at the start of an emergency, during the event, and throughout the recovery process. We did this by recruiting ham radio operators who largely have been ignored. As part of the private-public partnership, we have been granted a seat in the EOC to give us access to vetted infill that we can then transmit to FRS radios. FRS radios are basically inexpensive walkie-talkies. They're about $10 a piece. The city is paying for those. And the city purchases them, and Epic distributes them free of charge. Next slide, please. In conclusion, now is the time to get prepared and avoid tragedy and loss from a fire, earthquake, or communications emergency. Creating a public-private partnership is a model for what cities need to save lives and property before an emergency strikes. Calabasas took a risk, and it is paying off. Public-private partnerships can make the difference when the next disaster strikes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cameron. I think on behalf of the committee here, I would just like to offer up a round of applause for both speakers, because those are all actionable items. Before I open up to questions, or actually I will, I'll entertain comments from members of CEHD. Anyone? The Honorable Margaret Finley.
Thank you. I live in an area that's a fire area and it burned a number of years ago, back in the 80s, even before things got crazy. I would like to bring something like this to our city, this type of education. Where can we go to get to be in contact with someone so that we can have someone come out either at a council meeting or something, a town hall meeting, so that we can learn what kind of trees to plant, what kind of lowland shrubs we can plant. Where can we get all that information?
Elizabeth? Wanted to follow up on the member's question. If you wouldn't mind coming back up to the microphone. Thank you.
Of course. So you can find the membership code on the website. Is there any way we could pull up that slide deck again?
And if I may, just to interrupt, forgive me, I want to let all of the members know that we will be sending out the presentations following this meeting that will include the QR codes and the links. I'll send out for Liz's presentation what she shared here today, as well as the longer deck that is the 3-hour training. So those will all be going out to you today.
I think it was like the third slide there or something. So the code is recover_2025 and the website is usgbc-ca.org. Yep, there we go.
Great. It's just such good information. And you're right, this can save not only homes, but lives. So I appreciate that.
Thank you. Absolutely.
Okay, we also had a question from the Honorable Tanya Doby.
Thank you. My question is for you again, Fran. You should just stand up, Fran.
Just stay here. Okay.
So my question is, you had a few slides for defensible spaces. And first of all, like the homes looked amazing. I would love to be in a house where I've got that much land around me. Do you have anything that would be more appropriate to the areas that we actually live in? And they're becoming even less defensible with the amount of housing and whatnot. Without going too far down that rabbit hole, I'm going to control myself. We're not going there. But I'm just wondering, are there slides that are more applicable to our actual homes?
Absolutely. Yeah, this is something we've been discussing since what we saw in Altadena. The content does vary a little bit depending on which community we're presenting to. But that is something we included in our 2025 updates, is to make sure we include information about multifamily unit housing and also more densely populated areas. And unfortunately, we are seeing that the fire hazard severity zone, because it's increasing, is now in very densely populated areas, which we've never seen before. So it's definitely shifting the way that we teach this information. Yes, the actual information is in the full 3-hour course. So the slide deck you saw today was just little bits from the 2 trainings. There's a full 3-hour class for home hardening for construction professionals, and then there's a full 3-hour class for defensible space for landscape professionals.
Okay, last question, indulge me. Is there a way, I'm sure that, I don't know many people that have just like a few 3 hours extra hanging around. Is there a concise way to communicate? Because I'd love to share it with my community, but I don't know that they would come and watch a movie with me for 3 hours. Is there something more concise specifically for the densely populated areas? Or?
Yes, and that would be covered in the rebuilding guide, which is also available on the website. I believe that was on the 3rd slide, but if you go to our main landing page, usgbc-ca.org, and you scroll down a bit, there's a big section called Wildfire Rebuilding, and that'll take you to the guide. And that the guide's a little long, it's about 65 pages, but you can download a PDF, and it's for homeowners and for contractors.
And Member Doby, when we send the deck, we'll get the link to the guide, so
correct,
you get it out.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. I know there's more questions in the room, but our chair has his hand raised, and I thought it would go to Chair Shapiro for the next question.
Thank you very much. I wanted to thank Elizabeth and Brian for the great presentations. I mean, such important information and so relevant, so applicable to what we've all been going through. My question's for Brian, and I know Brian, so I should disclose he's been my appointed Commissioner of Public Safety for a lot of years, and he and a number of residents really stepped up and created this program, and it's easy to support. Could you explain, and I didn't prep this with him, the benefits of being a FireWise community, which you brought up, which is something I know is going on in our city, and I know whether it's insurance or other ramifications that may be a benefit. Thank you, and thank you both very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Shapiro. One of the touted benefits of becoming a FireWise community is that insurance companies have been told that they need to take that into consideration in setting their rates. California Fair Plan is, we've been told, offering a 10% discount on fire insurance, and other insurance companies are also providing discounts. Some aren't. We don't control the insurance market, but that's the dessert. The real value of becoming a FireWise community is the protection of your community from wildfires. Fundamentally, the mantra that we use is that wildfires are inevitable. Home destruction from wildfires is not. And the core to it all is home hardening. If you can effectively home harden your home, you're much more protected against that wildfire than if you didn't. And the essence of a FireWise community is that community aspect. So we'll gather a number of anywhere from 5 to 2,000 homes in a community. And basically, if I do home hardening and keep my home protected, then my home is protected. If my neighbor across the street does it, then his home is protected too. If a neighbor farther down the block does that, now maybe the three of us are providing protection for the rest of the houses on the block. And if we can get more and more people who have hardened their homes, then it provides a blanket of protection over a larger security. That's the real value of FireWise community, and that's why we're emphasizing it.
Excellent. Thank you, Brian.
Would I be able to add something to that quickly?
Would you like to ask a question?
Yes.
Absolutely.
I also wanted to specify, and Brian, let me know if you agree here. These home hardening strategies, the name can be deceiving. These are not just for residential homes. These techniques can be used in any buildings. So this is relevant for office buildings, schools, libraries, hospitals, any built structure, warehouses, exactly.
Yeah, I agree. Houses are actually the low-hanging fruit because the homeowner is the person who can make the decision and take action. When you're talking about a condominium now, you've got a condominium association or an office building who's the owner of the building. But you're absolutely right. It applies to any flammable structure that exists in the WUI.
All right. Next question is from Joseph Morbido.
All right. Thank you for the information, and maybe to piggyback on the Honorable Tanya Doby's comments about the other half of the population's houses. So like in my community of Wildemar, I can picture many places. I had written down defensible space, tree canopy, and now FireWise community, where there are large trees, and then the other one is climate change. So removing the trees probably goes against trying to battle climate change. And so I'm curious what's supposed to happen. And these are frequently underserved communities where I can only imagine what one tree would cost to remove, much less you're going to remove all the trees. So I think there's a big mess here because it also sounds like unfunded mandates on individual families trying to harden their home and make defensible space. Things to think about.
Thank you. I agree. That has been a challenge, particularly in this region where we do experience extreme heat for long periods of time, and that has a huge impact on community health. So I think what we've been trying to promote not only is keeping your native tree species, so really looking at the ecology of your space, and instead of removing green space, replacing it with a species that will survive. But you're right, that is very expensive. And it does cost a lot. Tree maintenance in general is just very expensive, particularly for those really old ones that you have to go in and, prune every couple of years. So I work with Arboleros, which is like the West Coast chapter of Arborists, and there's a couple different tree companies as well that we had them input their thoughts into the rebuilding guide before we launched it. And there will be a version 2 coming out, which I think will touch more closely on plant species and also working in the more densely populated areas, because you don't want to remove tree canopy in those neighborhoods because we need them to keep the heat down. So I think you're right. We'll have to get a bit creative in how we address those issues moving forward.
And if I may add to that, the key here is getting through to the homeowner. Oftentimes what I see when I'm doing home hardening evaluations are, beautiful bougainvillea bushes right up against the house and underneath the eaves. And the homeowner saying, don't touch that. My wife will kill me. And so I try to be pragmatic rather than, okay, you need to rip it all out. Let's talk about mitigation of your risk as opposed to full, doing away with it. Lean and green is the term of note. Make sure that all of the dead twigs and things underneath that beautiful canopy of flowers are removed. Make sure that the plant itself is well watered. And so you're not solving the problem, but you're reducing that risk. Just to kind of add to the flavor and the mix of what we're trying to accomplish here. Same page.
Yeah, that fits to your point, Brian, that there's no one size fits all solution here. It's really going to depend on your local community and what your local ecology is. So I recommend getting connected with like if you're living in Altadena, you might want to connect with the Resource Conservation District of the San Gabriel Mountains or something like that. Or Amigos de los Rios would have a lot of resources for that community. Or if you're in the Palisades, you would connect with Resource Conservation District of Santa Monica Mountains, for example.
Thank you. Next would be the Honorable Jeff Woods, please.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Thank you for the presentation. I remember, a couple meetings ago, we had an issue and we really discussed emergency preparedness. We had a lot of committee members that have experience. Some of us have worked in emergency management. So I'm glad we're continuing to talk about this. I think what my colleague from almost neighboring city, Los Alamitos, is very similar to Lakewood in the fact that we're not subject to wildfires, but our residents are subject to people wanting to make fireworks in their garages and chemicals that they don't realize shouldn't be together. And again, very similar. A resident would not probably sit for 3 hours to know that wildfires, there should be brush. Eucalyptus trees in a wildfire might be good, but in a windstorm in urban cities, they're causing damage to cars. Jacarandas are beautiful trees, but if you've seen those blooms and what they do to our street sweepers and things like that. And then you talk about clearing brush, which is great, but then right after the fires, we have floods and now there's no brush to contain the mud. So there's a lot to it, but I would be more concerned. Do we have an idea of how many homes or what percentage of the area covered by SCAG is in a wildfire area? I mean, there's a lot, and that's a big deal. But we have a lot of cities and a lot of homes that are subject to, again, being next to manufacturing, hazardous materials, that I would like to see us continue to look for that and ways we can address it and utilize the resources we have in this committee and elsewhere to really talk about those ideas. A lot of cities are doing great things. And I just think that we need to see what we can do for those that are not in wildfires. Thank you.
That's a great point. And I think, this content is definitely geared towards people who are living in the foothills or closer to the WUI. And we do provide totally different type of training for people in densely populated regions. So that's been challenging to, the content that we're teaching does vary quite a lot depending on which community you're teaching. So I haven't seen an overlay map, but it would be interesting to see if we could see a map of the SCAG communities with the fire has, I don't know why that's so hard for me to remember, hazards, fire severity zone.
We can look into that and see if that's something we can pull together.
I would also, I would also suggest that 100% of SCAG is subject to earthquake. And preparation for earthquakes is equally important. There are things you can and should be doing to prepare for the next big one. Not the least of which is, the aqueduct that comes from Northern California crosses the San Andreas Fault in 3 or 4 different places. FEMA says that, don't worry, we'll helicopter in water for you, but it may be 7 or 8 days, and it may be 10 to 15 miles away from you. So be prepared to have a gallon of water per day per person, in your home. And that's one of the things I like about our app. It provides a number of different suggestions. For example, how do you harvest water from your home after when the tap water isn't available? But yeah, earthquakes shouldn't be overlooked. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent. We have time. If we do our questions quick, we have time for 2 more, and I saw 2 more cards raised, so I'm going to call first on Honorable Gary Gardner.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As a representative from the Coachella Valley in the desert there, we have been very fortunate to not suffer what a lot of you have been going through over on this side of the mountains. But the news coverage of all of that did cause quite a panic amongst a lot of our residents. And so we really started engaging in a discussion out there. And I was hoping, and I'm hoping maybe in your bigger slide decks, you do have some stuff out there about the desert, because it is much different than over here. We just got our analysis from CAL FIRE, and we are in a fire zone. We have very strong prevailing winds out there that really will push embers and things. But from what we've been told, that a lot of our stuff isn't terribly flammable. Creosote bushes don't necessarily burn as well, but what we do have are a lot of palm trees. And there's a lot of controversy about whether to skirt those or not, keep them from burning. We have other non-native species like those dang tamarisk trees that put out a lot of needles, and they're very flammable. Any thoughts on how different our preparedness should be out there for fires versus on this side?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think we say that home hardening is somewhat universal. So, those building retrofits that you can do are relevant to any location that you live. It's really the plant choices and the defensible space that's going to adjust for your location. So you're right. I think it'll be easier to plan the defensible space landscape because you don't have as densely vegetated areas. I think what you are going to come up against is particularly in the fall, as a lot of the vegetation gets dried out. Now you sort of have a lot of combustible material that's built up over the summer months. So Exactly. So you're right. That does make your communities vulnerable. So I think the two big things you can do are the maintenance and then education around native plant species. It might be worth connecting with a local tribe or nation to get their recommendations on the ecology and the history of the ecology. That might shed some light there. But all of these defensible space and home hardening will be relevant for Coachella Valley. Absolutely.
All right, thank you. And our last question will be from Victoria Garcia.
Thank you. Well, my first thought is just I wonder how we can use this information as we are advocating, not only during the RHNA process, but with our state legislature as they try to require greater density and remove cities' ability to like require setbacks and whatnot. This is a really important factor. I think their ear is now going to listen with the devastation these fires have caused locally, and a good chunk of our legislatures from LA County. But my question is, you said all plants are flammable, and I'm like frozen. Is it once you're in a house, is it everything's flammable? And it doesn't matter how many house plants you have, or does it matter? And then my other concern is I'm almost thinking I should pause on disseminating some of this information because where I live is extreme heat is the issue. And we actually have partnered with tree people to get non-native plants because they provide more shade canopy. And we are we are way underrepresented with green space and shade. So should I like put a pause on and get more? Is it more that we should get what's right for our city and our area? Because some of it seems to be contradicting, just depending on what your greatest bill is.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's definitely been challenging because our extreme heat for construction professionals and our wildfire defense for construction professionals do contradict each other. They're giving totally opposite guidelines. So yes, I do recommend for your community to just focus on extreme heat, do what you need to do to get trees planted and shade. And then if you think down the line, if there's a risk for windblown embers, then that's time to address that. But do you think what community were you in again?
I'm in San Fernando, so we are very urban, but we're also very close to like Silmar and the mountains. So
that's tricky.
Yeah, it's tricky.
Okay. I mean, I would push for native species if you can, but if it's a matter of time and money, you have to do what you have to do to build a healthy community.
All right, thank you so much. Another hand for our speakers, please.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks, Brian.
I always judge my speakers by actionable items that I can take away. And I was furiously writing here, talking about what can I tell our own EOC about these openings, these classes, these opportunities, and how we can organize volunteers in the community to help get us there. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is chair's report. Yes. Oh, sorry. I turned the page too quick. Are there any public comments for this? Any in-house?
Mr. Vice Chair, I do not see any members of the public wishing to participate online or in person.
Thank you so much. Okay, so now we're going to go to a chair's report, and I'm giving the report on behalf of the chair. First, I'd like to have the introduction of new CEHD committee members. First up is Councilmember Debbie Baker from La Palma. Thank you. Welcome. John Grass from Brawley. Right. Okay. And then Joe Baca from Rialto. Welcome. Last month, we had a Sacramento summit. The SCAG's Legislative Communications and Membership Committee traveled to Sacramento, where they met with key elected officials and staff to advocate for the region's priorities. Included within this list of priorities were policies intended to promote resiliency and address the impact of natural disasters, including state legislation on fire insurance, and encouraging the establishment of financial tools like climate resiliency districts, a topic that we discussed at our CEHD meeting last month. This served as an important step towards implementing feedback and priorities established by members of this committee, and I look forward to continuing our work and addressing resiliency issues. General Assembly announcement. As you know, SCAG will be hosting its 60th annual regional conference and General Assembly next month on May 1st through May 2nd, 2025 in Palm Desert. If you're interested in learning more, visit SCAG's 2025 Regional Conference and General Assembly website. Additionally, our committees, Government Affairs Officer Jonathan Davis is available to answer questions both in person and by email at davis@scag.ca.gov. And now I would turn it over for a staff report.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair, and thank you, members of the committee. I am proud to share that SCAG's works received 2 separate awards last month, the first of which is from the California Association of Council of Governments, also known as CalCog. They recognized SCAG's Active Transportation, Safety, and Engagement Program, Go Human, with the Eureka Award for Regional Excellence. The award recognizes Go Human's creative leadership and thinking needed to develop and implement new ideas that serve as best practices for others to follow. Additionally, SCAG will receive an award for Outstanding Environmental Analysis Document from the Association of Environmental Professionals for the program Environmental Impact Report for Connect SoCal 2024, our regional transportation plan / sustainable community strategy. This is the first time SCAG has received this recognition for its environmental analysis of an RTP SES, and SCAG staff will attend the AEP conference in Oxnard on April 7th to receive the award. I'd also just like to thank members of the committee for their vision and leadership, which made these programs a reality. And that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair.
All right. Well, I'm big on applause lines, and winning awards is an applause line. So well done. Are there any member announcements? Seeing none. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 5th, 2025. Oh, sorry. Chair Shapiro. Oh, he's clapping. Sorry. Okay.
You wanted applause. I applauded.
Clapping. What was that? All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, June 5th, 2025, and this meeting is adjourned.